Yes, guys, welcome to our today's class. This is lesson number 5, video number 5. Remember, if you are not done with other lessons, please start with lesson number 1, lesson number 2, lesson number 3, and lesson number 4 before moving to lesson number 5. Right? And remember, you need to register by sending to me your email address and your full name. Right? So if you send me your full name, your email address, you are going to get a registration from Cisco. And what you need to do, you just check your email address and follow the instructions, right? So, and you can also contact me via WhatsApp or via email, right? Today we are going to talk about IP addresses, right? Let me go first to my document. Yeah. So we're going to talk about IP addresses. Guys, the lesson is very easy, but you need to be very careful, right? So we are talking about IP addresses. When we are talking about IP addresses, we spoke about it last time, but just a reminder, you need to know that like an IP address is like a name that you are giving to your child. Remember, when you have your kids, your children, you need to give them specific name in order for you to identify them and to avoid confusions. The same with your network. So a network is like a family. Computers, printers, cameras, those are your children. Those are your kids. Those computers, those cameras required specific name, unique name. Those names, we call them IP addresses. So it's just a way to identify uniquely your computers, your cameras, your printers. Now, those IP addresses are coming in two forms or two types. We do have what we call a private IP, and we do have what we call a public IP addresses. So you as a specialist, you as a network engineer, you need to understand that when we are talking about IP addresses, we do have two types. There is what we call a private IP, and there is what we call a public IP address. Very clear. So when you see an IP address, when you want to use IP addresses, you need always to remember yourself that we do have two types of IP addresses: private IP addresses and public IP addresses. Now, what are the differences, right? We're going to start with public IP addresses. So when we're talking about a private IP, guys, this specific IP address, you are going to use it when you want to connect your device to the internet. This is the meaning, right? Let me first select it. I want to, okay. So this IP address, you are going to use it when you want to connect yourself or your computer to the internet, right? So it's available to the internet. You understand? So this IP address, so it's an IP address that will allow your computer to be connected to the internet. This is the IP address that will allow your phone, your cameras, your routers, your switches to be connected to the internet, right? So if you want to be connected to the internet, you are going to use a public IP addresses, right? And this particular IP, it's unique, right? Nobody else can use it, right? So if your phone want to be connected to the internet, your phone will get a public IP. That public IP is unique, right? Because of that IP address, you can access other networks. You can access Facebook, you can access Gmail, understand? So you cannot use it for other things. This IP address, you can use it for you to be connected to the internet, right? So, and if you give it to a computer, it means that computer can be accessible using the internet. If you give it to a camera, means somebody can use that IP to access your camera because it's a public IP. Now let's talk about private IP. Private IP now. Let's try to make it a bit big so you can see. Guys, when we're talking about a private IP, this IP address is not available to the internet. Not available. Not available from the internet. From the internet, right? So it means what? You cannot use a private IP to be connected to the internet, right? So if you give your computer an IP address that is private, what does it mean? That computer cannot be connected to the internet because that's a private IP. It's your own IP. Nobody knows about it, right? So, and this IP address can be reused. What does it mean? When you are using a private IP, your computer can have a private IP. My computer can have a private IP, right? So two companies can use same private IP because those IPs can be used only to their own companies. You understand? So very clear public IP addresses, you can use those IP addresses to be connected to the internet, right? And those IPs are unique. Private IP, they are not available from the internet. So if you assign to your computer a private IP, means you cannot be connected to the internet, right? And two different companies can use the same private IP addresses. And remember again, guys, one aspect, when we are talking about a public IP addresses, this IP, you can purchase them. You are getting them from a provider, right? Those IP addresses come from the provider, from the internet provider. So for you to get a public IP, you're going to get it from Celsi, from Telecom, from MTN, from Airtel, from Vodacom. You understand? But private IP, your company, yourself, can choose. You understand? So a public IP, you cannot get it from yourself. You must get it from the internet service provider. But a private IP, you can choose yourself. You can wake up in the morning and you choose your own IP, right? So to summarize, we are talking about an IP address. There are two types of IP addresses, a public and a private. Like public IP addresses, you need to buy them. You need to get them from a provider, right? From the internet service provider, right? And those IP, those public IP, they are unique. What does it mean? Two devices cannot have the same public IP addresses or address. And when you are talking about a public IP address, those IP addresses, they are available. You can use them to access the internet. So if you assign to your computers like public IP, means those computers can be accessible from the internet, and you too, you can access the internet. Now, when it comes to private IP, when you are using a private IP, means you cannot be connected to the internet, right? And your devices cannot be accessible from the internet. So if I have my laptop using like a private IP, nobody can access my laptop because I'm using a private IP. And when you're talking about like a private IP again, this IP can be reused by other companies because those IPs, they are private. You can have your own company, use the same IP addresses, and me too, I can have my company, I'm using the same IP addresses. And remember, the big difference also is when you're talking about private IP, you as a network administrator, a network engineer, you are choosing your own IP. But when it comes to public, you must get them from the provider. But later on, when you're going to move to CCNA 2, you are going to learn more again about the IP addresses. But today, you are going to be able to understand what is an IP address, what are the types of IP addresses, and how can you use them. Now, we're still talking about private IP. For now, we are going to use what we call private IP because the public IP, we need to get them from the internet service provider. Remember, when you activate your data and you activate your data, you wanna go to the internet, means what? You're going to get an IP address from CCNA from your provider, right? This is the meaning. Okay, now we're talking about private IP. When we're talking about private IP addresses, we do have three types or three classes. Okay, let me talk about three, but normally there are 5 classes, right? Okay, let me say it like oh. We do have 5 classes. 5 classes, right? Okay. Which are, we have class A, class B, class C, class D, and class E, right? So when you are talking about like private IP, we do have 5 classes. There's class A, class B, the class C, D, and E. So when you see an IP address, you must ask yourself, which class is this one? So if it's a private, which class? Are you using class A, B, C, D, or E? But today, you are going to master how to choose, how to understand which class is, right? But remember, before even moving forward, class D and E, we don't use those 2 classes, right? They are there for experimentations, right? Experimentation and other future studies and research. So class D and E, we don't use those 2 classes. They are not used. We keep them for experimentation, research, and future studies, right? So we don't gonna use the class D and E. You must remember why we don't use the class D and E, because they are there for experimentations, for studies, for future research. We are going only to use the class A, B, and C. Those are the 3 columns here, right? So when we are talking about like a private IP, you need to understand that we do have 3 classes, like class A, B, and C. So if you wanna choose your IP address, you must always ask, which class am I gonna choose? My IP will be class A, or class B, or class C. Now, what are the differences between like class A, B, and C? Class A, it's for government, for big organizations, right? So government, banks, big organizations. So what does it mean? So it means this, guys. Government. Okay, what does it mean? It means this. If you wanna connect a bank or banks, remember, you have a bank, you want to design your network, you wanna connect the computers to have a network, you wanna connect the ATMs and so on. You need to go for class A. Why class A? Because a class A will come with more IPs. There are many IP addresses. So class A comes with many many IP addresses. Don't worry for now. Just understand that class A, it's for governments, banks, big organizations, right? Why? Because the class A can come with what? Many IP addresses. Yeah. It's for okay, for government. I don't know how to write, it's giving me a headache. So maybe it's a big organizations, maybe like that company has 5,000 workers, like 10,000 workers, you need to go for class A because class A comes with many IPs. Remember, guys, the IPs are limited. Because they are limited, you need to know which class will have many IPs. So if that particular business has so many users, so many computers, you need to go for class A. Why class A? Because class A comes with many IP. So class B, so it's for middle companies, right? Middle companies, middle organization, right? Maybe over 220 devices, right? Like over, but don't worry for now, right? So if you have more than 200 computers, so it's better to go for class B. So if you notice like, hey, this company has more than 200 devices, okay, it's better for me to go for class B or uh, or maybe more than 256, but I don't want to go there first. Just understand, right? Just to make you better, right? So class C, this is for small companies, small organizations, right? Especially less than 200 users or less than 200 computers, you can go for class C, right? So guys, we are talking about how to choose an IP address, right? We are going to go for private IP. And when we are going to private IP, we need to understand that we have 5 classes, A, B, C, D, and E. D and E, we don't use those 2 classes. Why? Because those classes, they are reserved for experimentations, research, future studies, right? We only use the class A, B, and C, right? So for you to choose now which class you are going to go for, you must look at number of users, number of computers, how many people can access that restaurant, that business. You understand? So if it's less than 200, you need to go for class C, right? Because like a class C will be for small organizations, small companies, small businesses, right? But later on, we are going to see how many computers or how many IPs are there in class C, B, and A. Don't worry for now. What I want you to understand, when you can see like, no, there are fewer than 200 users that can access this network, let me go for class C. But if you see like it's more than 200, you can go for class B, right? And when you say that it's more, like over 1,000, 2,000, it's better to go for class A. You understand? Now, we're going to start with class C, slowly by slowly, I go to class B and class A. Now, guys, when you decide, you said, okay, we're going to go for class C, how your IP will be. Your IP must start with 192.168.0.0, right? So your IP must start with 192.168. You can play around those two, but the maximum is 255. Let me give you an example. Look here. So if they ask you to choose a class C IP, don't change those 2 parts. So it has to start with 192.168, right? Now you can say, okay, it's going to be .1.0. right? First IP. They can ask you, okay, what's gonna be the second one for the second computer? 192.168. Don't change those two. You can play around, say .2.0. They can ask you, can you provide the third one? 192.168.4.0, right? So you can play around this, right? Okay, let's do some few exercises first with class C, right? So we're gonna have a switch here. Okay, today I'm using the new versions. Sometimes I can go for the old one. You just drag and drop a switch, like here. Maybe you have 3 computers, just for us to go faster. You can run your cables. You're gonna use a straight one. You connect, just connect like any port. Yes, when you are done with cabling, guys, let's use class C. Let's use this one, right? Remember that for this one, we don't change 192.168. Don't worry about why and so on. We're still beginners. Just understand that for class C, I have to start with 192.168, right? Okay, you come here. You can say maybe 192.168. Okay, let's say, but there is one thing that I forgot to mention. Okay, let me try to share again my screen. Okay, where are we? I'm trying to share my screen. I have some of the issues here. Yes, what is the document? Yeah. So we are here, right? 192.168.1.0, 192.168.2.0, 192. Those are the IPs that you chose, right? But those IPs, right? We call them network IP. So for your company, you can go for this one. For 192.168.1.0, like another one can go for 192.168.2.0, like another one can go for, right? So what we're gonna do now, let's go to the first device, IP 192.168.1, maybe .2, right? The second the computer, we can do the same, 192.168.1. Maybe here we can say .3, and you can come here 192.168.1.4, right? So this one, like I don't change it, like one is everywhere. And when you are done, you can ping for testing the connectivity, 192.168. Let's make it big. It looks a bit small, the options, the preferences. I'm trying just to make it a bit bigger, fonts, everything like. Yeah. Let's try .1.3. Yeah, you can see there's a reply, right? So this is how, guys, you can choose an IP address for a class C. Let's start again. So I'm going to do another exercise. 5 new. We are using class A. We need some of the computers here. We need a switch, like here. We're gonna run like our cable. Okay. Yes. Now, let's say you wanna choose your class C. Somebody else can say, okay, for class C, my network IP is this one, 192.168.2.0, right? So what does it mean? It means that you have to play around this 0, but don't use 0, because 0 is a network IP, right? We are going to play around here, but the maximum we can go for is 255, right? Okay, what we're gonna do now, and here this guy is made slightly mistake. Date should be 16 and date should be 31, but okay, no problem. Okay, what we're gonna do, we go to our computer, you go to desktop, like IP 192.168 .2.1 maybe, don't put 0, right? You go to the next computer, you do the same, 192.168.2.2 maybe, or .3. Yeah, you do the same here, 192.168.2 dot maybe 5, and you are done. And you can try to ping 192.168.2.3. If there is 3, I don't know, maybe 5, and you can see there is a reply, right? So this is how you can choose a class C IP. But I think there's a problem here. Normally they should be from 16 to, but don't worry for now. We're gonna try to fix it later on, right? So guys, this is how you can choose your IP address, class C, right? Let's go for class B, right? For class B, okay, let's say this, like I'm gonna have like maybe 2 computers here, and I'm gonna have a switch here, and we can try to plug. Now we're gonna go for class B, we are here. So if they ask you to choose one, you can choose maybe 172.16, right? .16 or .18. So this one means that you can change this one, but up to 31. Huh? .16 dot maybe we can say 3.0. Somebody else can say for our company it's gonna be 172.20 dot, or maybe let's just keep 16.4.0, right? So we're gonna go for this one, 172.16.3.0. It's 172.16.3. Remember, don't put the 0 because the network IP, we don't use it. Maybe you can say 1, you see, and you can go to the next computer, you do the same, 172.16.3, maybe .2, and you are done. You can also test the connectivity. So if these 2 computers can communicate, ping 192.168. No, we are using a class B 16.3.2. So you can see they can communicate. So, right? The same you can try to use class A. You're gonna do the same, right? We can have a switch here. So this time around, we are going to use class A. We are here, we are going to use here. Remember here, we don't play with what? We don't play with these numbers here. So like one of the example, it can be 10 dots. So wherever there is 0 here, means you can change, right? But up to 255. So 0, like up to 255. You can take like any number. You can say dot 5, dot 0, dot 0. Somebody else can say for our network, it's gonna be 10, dot 9, dot 45, dot 0. Okay, let's go for this one, right? Like 10.5.0.0. 10.5.0. Remember the last one, you have to change it to connect, keep it 0. Okay, you can go to the next computer. 10.5.0.3, and you can test the connectivity. You can ping 10.5.0.2, I think, and you can see there is a communications, right? So this is how, guys, you can use an IP address for class A, class B, and class C. So most of the time when you are doing like exercises, you must always choose your class. You can go for class A, class B, class C, but put in your mind that how many users, how many computers, right? Remember, like class C for small companies, class B for middle companies, and class A for huge organizations like government, because government got so many workers, so many users, right? So this is a class like private IP exercises, and I'm going to send you a document that will come again with some of the exercises. I know it's a bit a tricky lesson, but slowly by slowly, when you're going to move to CCNA 3, you're going to understand these concepts better. More you are moving, more you're going to master those concepts. Don't try to understand the other things. Just do a few exercises in order for you to have an idea. All right. So today's lesson was just for you to have an idea where the IPs are coming from, how we can use them, how we can classify them, and why we do classify those IEPs, right? Thank you very much. That was like our lesson number 5. And we do remain with lesson 6, lesson 7, lesson 8, and lesson 9, and the last one, lesson 10, in order for you to start writing your assessment. Remember, if you don't have the access to Cisco platform, you need to contact me using my email address or my phone number, wherever you are. Those guys from India, from US, from England, please, you contact me, I will register you, and you keep on watching my videos, and you do all my work in order for you to be certified, right? So thank you very much. See you soon.